Do you know someone who might want to learn SynthEyes? The industry standard 3D tracking and match moving application used on huge Hollywood blockbuster movies and across all the shows you see on your favorite streaming services? Yeah? Well, I'm here to help with that. When anyone first opens SynthEyes though, it can be a little overwhelming. In this video, I mean to alleviate that and demystify the SynthEyes user interface by covering some of the most useful basics. At the top of the user interface, we see the Room tabs. These are virtual rooms with controls for that particular task. The Summary Room gives us a one-click solution to automatic 3D tracking. And when it comes to auto tracking, the Roto-masking room makes it possible to generate garbage masks right in SynthEyes to isolate useful areas of the photography and to tell SynthEyes what to ignore. The Features room gives us more granular control over the auto tracking process. The Trackers room is where we do user-supervised 2D tracking. The Planar room is where we can do planar tracking. The GOH track room is where we find extremely advanced tools for doing complex hierarchical tracking and for tracking deformations. The Graphs room is a dedicated graphs editing room, though we can access our graphs in individual or even floating viewports. The Lens room is where we find tools to work with the lens of the camera that we're match moving, which includes dealing with lens distortion. The Solver room gives us extremely powerful tools to solve even the most challenging match moves. The Phases room makes it possible to create advanced procedural systems for solving difficult 3D tracking problems. The Coordinates room gives us the tools to align our 3D tracks to the real world. The 3D room makes it possible to place and manipulate geometry, lights, cameras, and any tracked 3D objects in our scene. And finally, the Lights room, which gives us tools to not just place lights in our scene, but to solve for light placement based on the shadows and reflections we can see in our motion picture photography. Those are all the rooms. They are arranged loosely in the order in which you might use them. You may start by trying an auto track, and when the shot is just too complex for unsupervised auto tracking, you may need to do a bit of garbage masking. You may need to provide a bit more input on how the automatic 2D tracking might be done. When the shot can't be auto-tracked at all, you'll head over to the Trackers room and do a bunch of supervised tracking. And from there, you will generally keep moving from left to right through the room tabs. To show SynthEyes in action here today, we're just going to focus on what are probably the two most useful rooms: the Trackers room and the Solver room. But on very simple shots, SynthEyes provides a one-click solution for auto tracking. The Summary room gives us simple controls for quickly executed automatic 3D tracking. When you launch SynthEyes, you start in the Summary room. In the top left of the Summary room, you see a big green button labeled Auto. Just click it and follow the on-screen instructions. Load some motion picture media, could be a movie or an image sequence. Click OK on the first window you see. SynthEyes will think for a minute, and voila, there's your auto track. I'll cover the Summary room in more detail in the future, but that's how easy an auto track in SynthEyes can be. Now, let's get to the Trackers room. There are a lot of user interface elements in the Trackers room, but we'll just focus on the most pertinent controls here. We'll start with the magic wand icon. When we click the Tracker magic wand, it puts us in tracker creation mode. So let's create a tracker. With the magic wand activated, I can now create a supervised tracker every time I left click in the camera viewport. Let's turn off the magic wand and select those trackers. We can either lasso select them, or if we want better control, we can shift left click the exact trackers that we want to select. The next button, the red X, will delete the selected items. In this case, it will delete all the trackers we just selected. The thumbnail in the upper left of the screen shows what pattern the tracker is looking for. You can left-click drag the thumbnail to reposition your tracker, or you can just click drag the tracker itself and move it right to a feature. And when you do, it will update the thumbnail. There are two critical things about a 2D tracker that are common throughout the world of visual effects. The smaller box of the tracker represents the pattern the tracker is searching for, and the larger box is the area in which the search takes place. That means SynthEyes will search for the pattern shown in your thumbnail in just the search area. Once you get the tracker lined up on a clear feature and have set your pattern and search area, just tap the spacebar. And just like that, the tracker stays locked on that feature. You'll notice that when the tracker goes off screen, the tracker enabled switch under the tracker thumbnail automatically shuts off. If we track a feature in front of the woman, as soon as her foot crosses paths with the tracker loses sight of the feature it was locked onto and wanders off aimlessly. We can go back to the frame where the tracker loses sight of the feature and just shut it off with that tracker enabled switch. And when the feature becomes visible again, we can re-enable the tracker by left clicking on the thumbnail and then just dragging the tracker back on target. That creates a keyframe for the tracker's position, but also for the pattern the tracker is looking for. You can enable and disable trackers whenever they disappear and reappear, and you can reposition the tracker to create a new tracker pattern keyframe. There's a lot more to talk about in this room, and about supervised 2D tracking in general, but what we just saw here are the basics. I'm now going to do some supervised 2D tracking of enough features to do a 3D solve in the solver room. Now that we've done all our supervised 2D tracking, let's hit the Go button and see the results. Now we can see the 3D positions for all our 2D trackers and the path of the camera. This is a really basic shot, but in complex shots, you may have thousands of 2D trackers, multiple cameras, 3D tracked objects, and a lot more. And SynthEyes is fully capable of dealing with those hard shots. But that is all far too much for a basic SynthEyes overview. That covers the very basics of getting oriented to SynthEyes for a new user. There's quite a lot more to explore, so have fun looking around.